Alright guys, so I'm going to be doing a little build and gameplay video. First part's going to be gameplay, so I'm not going to talk too much. I'm just going to do a short gameplay clip, and then I will go through explaining the build and all of that. Alright guys, so before I get into this build, I just want to state up front that the purpose of this video isn't to show you guys a perfect Wand of WOH build or a super comprehensive video. There are more comprehensive videos on YouTube for Wand of WOH builds with perfect gear. Well, near perfect gear. The purpose of this video is just to show you guys a Wand of WOH build that can get you through T6 or solo with a what are those guys called? With an enchantress, with sub-perfect gear. I'd also like to stay up front that I would not recommend this build for group play in T6. You can use it, it will work, but it's not going to be smooth, simply because as a melee wizard you're going to be facing a lot more damage in group play, and it's going to make survivability an issue. Now if you're playing, I mean, it's a bit situational. If you're playing with people that 3 other players who are all have insane or good stats and who are capable of putting down enemies quickly, then you could probably get by with it. But if you're playing in a group and you're dealing the most damage and you're taking the brunt of the damage from the elite packs and such, then this is going to be a problem for group play. So I'll go ahead and start with the stats. In order to make this build work with the way that I've done it, with the skills that I've laid it out, you need at least 50% CDR. Any less than that, you get too much downtime with a Frost Nova. You expose yourself to a lot of damage, and it becomes a problem very quickly. Survivability will become a definite issue. It also becomes a problem because you can't lay down the explosion blasts fast enough, which will affect your life per hit. So that will affect your survivability as well. So 55% CDR is what I found to be the optimal range. More than that, once you get close to the 60% range, it's really nice because you can keep everything permanently on freeze. But then, because your CDR is so high, essentially you've sacrificed somewhere else, either in the damage department or in the toughness or the healing or etc. So you just got to find that sweet spot that works for you. For me, I found that around 55%, but just about for everyone, you're going to need at least 50%. The critical hit chance, critical hit damage, I mean, you could play around with those. As long as you're critting around at least 6 to 7 mil, then it's doable, which is what I'm at, and I feel like that's the bare minimum for T6 with this build. Is you need to be critting at least 6 to 7 mil to get it to work properly. Otherwise, you're just not killing self stuff fast enough, and you're exposing yourself to a lot more time where enemies can deal damage to you, and then survivability also becomes an issue. So all these things work hand in hand together. It's not just, oh, I don't deal damage fast enough, it's no big deal. No, if you don't deal damage fast enough, then you're just going to get killed faster, and it becomes a problem. Okay, so sorry about that. So let's get into the skills. Obviously, this build is based around the explosive blast, chain reaction. This is a fire version of this build. I suppose you could use one of these other runes for the arcane. If you're doing an iteration where you have extremely high CDR, then you could use the short fuse, but again, you're going to be dealing less damage than you would be if you're using chain reaction. Chain reaction does deal more damage, so just keep that in mind. Let's see. Frost Nova is a must for this, with the cold snap, increased duration of freeze, and reduces cooldown. Again, if you have really high CDR or you have really high toughness or healing, then you could go with the Bone Chill to help deal more damage. If that's the way you've gone with your build, that'll work. I also really like to use Black Hole here. You could use a couple other things. For example, you could use Archon or Mirror Image or Teleport. I have gone with Black Hole because I have found that in the small amount of downtime I have with Frost Nova, I can cast Black Hole with the Spell Steal and incapacitate the enemies until my Frost Nova cooldown is done. This also helps reduce the damage from large groups as well as increase your damage in large groups. And in large elite packs, that's very helpful. It'll keep you alive. Then again, so will Mirror Image. This argument is valid for Mirror Image or the Teleport as well. Those could do the same things for you too. You could kite out of a messy situation, and that'll be fine as well. People ask me why not put Heat Wave here. As other people have stated in their Wand of Woe builds, Wave of Force with Heat Wave has no place in this build. Simply because you can't really stand still with this build with the way I've made it. If you stand still, you're going to take a lot of damage, and the survivability will again become a huge issue. Yeah, if you've done some iteration of this build where you just have insane toughness and healing, then maybe you could get away standing still, but again, that's not optimal for a wizard because he's not inherently a melee character and he doesn't have the 30% damage reduction buff like the Crusader, the Barbarian, and the Monk. So this just doesn't work. Here, the Familiar with the Spark Flame, again, fire build for the boosted damage. Much superior to any of these other runes. Magic weapon with the Force weapon. People ask me why not the Ignite rune. I've played with both, and I have found that the Force weapon definitely deals more damage. I think I crit around 1 million to 2 million more with the Force weapon. I don't know if it was different for previous versions of Diablo 3, but for this version, 2.06, definitely this is what works. You'll deal most damage with that. Energy armor, pinpoint barrier. If survivability is an issue for you, go with prismatic armor. I would definitely recommend prismatic armor for group play to help with the survivability, definitely. But hey, if you have really high toughness and healing, then you can stick with the pinpoint barrier for the group play. But for solo, I find that I can get away with the pinpoint barrier. So the passives, Audacity is a must because, again, melee build, close proximity, equivocation for the cooldowns. This isn't a must. If your CDR is already really high, then you could go with something else here. For example, cold-blooded to deal more damage, or conflagration for the increased crit chance. Blur, I don't really know how you could do without this in T6. Again, if your toughness and healing is some insanely high number, then maybe you could replace this for one of either cold-blooded or conflagration. But I find that I can't get away without it. Same with the dominance. I need this as well to help with the survivability. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the passives. Let's go to the armor now. You've already seen the stats. Okay, so obviously this build is based around the Wand of Woe. I would not recommend rolling Kadala for this, just because the percentage of it turning up out of all other wands is something like 2.3%, which is insanely low. And then when you do the math and then you factor in what the chance of it turning up in relation to all the other one-handed weapons that Kadala could spit out, it's extremely low. I did the math at one point, I don't remember what it was, but it's retardedly low. And you could end up spending like 30,000 shards on Kadala and never get the wand. It's just farm for it. I mean, that's all I can say. It takes a few months, but it's taken me, I think, about 2 to 3 months, but hey, finally turned up. Hexing pants are also necessary for this build with a mobile version of this build that I have done. You could go ahead and roll with Kadala for this. The percent chance of it turning up is about double what the Wand of Woes is. I think it's around 5%, don't quote me on that. But yeah, it took me about 10,000 shards from Kadala to eventually get this. She spit out one of these around 7,000 shards. Somewhere here. I can't find it right now, but I had another hexing pants. I guess it's on one of my other characters. And the first time I got it, it didn't roll correctly. It didn't have a main stat. And just recently, I got her to roll me one with a int main stat. So all guild set, I find it's almost completely necessary for this build. I don't really know how you could get away without it, just because it reduces damage so much from elite packs and melee and ranged characters, as well as boosting your own. For a second set, you could go with you have a lot of options. You can go with the Captain Crimson double or triple set. You could go with the Tal Rasha double or triple set. I mean, you'll need the triple set for the increased resistance. I was doing that previously, but I like the Captain Crimson a bit more. It also allowed me to move around some other things and deal more damage, so I stuck with the... I don't have a Ring of Royal Grandeur, but again, this is an imperfect build. I would recommend a Ring of Royal Grandeur because that would allow you to free up some of your other slots for other items that could be extremely useful. If I had a Royal Ring Grandeur, then I could get rid of this chest piece and do a double set of the Firebirds, which would increase my damage because I can get the double set, which is the 500 int. That would be very helpful. I would also be able to get the triple set of the Captain Crimson. That would again be very helpful with the resistance, helpful with survivability. So yes, I would recommend a Ring of Royal Grandeur. I'm getting by without it right now, but it would be nice if I had one. Definitely need a Stone of Jordan, obviously. That's a must. Let's see. For the headpiece, again, I'm going with All Guild set, so that's what I have here. People ask why not Andariel's helm. Let's see if I can find it. The reason I would say to not go with this is because of the extra fire damage taken. You will find that with this build, staying alive is always going to be an issue. You're a wizard, melee is not inherent for a wizard for any build, so staying alive is always going to be your primary concern. And extra damage taken, it's not ideal at all. And then after you get rid of that affix, then you're dealing with basically you're looking at a helm with just 4 affixes. Sorry, the empty socket there. see. So it's not the ideal helm. You could go with the Tal Rasha helm here. I was doing that previously for the Tal Rasha 3 set. There's another helm, I can't remember the name of it, but it would also be very helpful. I remember the legendary affix for it is whenever you fall below a certain percentage of health, I think it's something like 25 or 30%, diamond skin is automatically casted, which is extremely helpful. If you have that helm, then I would definitely recommend working your build around so that you can have that and be very helpful for keeping you alive. I can't remember the name of it. If you guys want to post it in the comments, that'd be great. I have a list I can go pull up and find it, but it'll just take too long. Here, chest piece as well, all guild sets. People ask why not Cindercoat. You could use Cindercoat if you have the perfect one. If you have one with the int main stat, as well as a nice fire skill buff, and then if you can get Vit and health regen on it, or Vit and resistance on it, then I would say go with the Cindercoat. Otherwise, it is going to be inferior to most other chest pieces. Plus, you don't need the reduced cost of casting of fire skills, because AP is not an issue for this build. So if you have the perfect Cindercoat, you could go with that. I have not been able to find the perfect one. You could also go with the Tal Rasha or r.o.s. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sorry if I butchered that. But the r.o.s set chest piece, you can go with that as well. The gloves, Mage Fist, obviously I can't really see with going with anything else here. I mean, maybe if you have the gloves of worship, you could use those. But I think you'll find that farming for those is extremely difficult. Act 2 farming can take a long time to get those gloves. But if you have them, I don't know how the mechanics of the build would change, but I guess you could use them. But Mage Fist here is hard to beat, I mean, because you have the possibility of crit chance, crit damage, CDR, as well as the fire skill buff. I mean, it's pretty almost best in slot here is the Mage Fist. Necklace, you could really go with whatever here. I would recommend the elemental necklaces. The ones for fire, poison, cold, as I have here, the arcane. If you have those, or whichever ones you do have, I would recommend keeping them in your inventory for depending on the elites that you face, the elite packs, and then just switching in and out to, again, help keep you alive. I find this is extremely helpful with cold elites, with freezing. Also, if you have the ice climbers, that'd be nice. I'm going with the Captain Crimson boots here, but ice climbers would be nice here. If you have the Ring of Royal Grandeur, as you can see, that opens up a lot more options, as I was previously mentioning. It allows you to do a lot more things. Let's see. Yeah, shoulders, you can go for whatever. I think I already touched on that. Source, I have gone with the Mirror Ball because, again, this is the best I have. Got the crit chance, CDR, and explosive blast buff. I would say best in slot here, if you can get a Firebird's Eye that has crit chance, CDR, explosive blast, nice fire skill buff, and a main stat, that is best in slot. In conjunction with the double set for it would be perfect. I have not been able to get a Firebird's Eye that has all three of those. I don't even know if that's possible, actually. No, you could have two of those three. Yeah, so you could have like the CDR, the crit chance, or the CDR and the crit damage. But if you get two of those three, then on your Firebird's Eye, that would be best in slot, along with the main stat, obviously, and the fire skill buff. That would be best. You go with the Tal Rasha source here. I was doing that previously. Mycans, I mean, if you get a nice roll on those, you can go with one of those as well. Chantotos, I'm not familiar with the way this rolls. I don't know if that critical hit for 3 arcane power is immovable. I don't know if you can change that. It's a permanent effect, so I'm not sure. But I think you could also use Chantotos here. There's a lot of options for sources. But the important thing here, guys, is to be sure you're hitting the numbers. That's what you really need to keep in mind. As long as you're finding a way to at least have 6 million toughness and 22k healing, you can get by. Any less than that, and gameplay just starts to suck because you'll be dying a lot. You could also go on the flip side. You could have extremely high toughness, around like 13 or 14 mil, and lower healing, and then rely on healing from health globes and healing glows. That could work as well. Damage, probably wondering what my damage is. once you get moving around because of the hexing pants, once you get moving around because of the hexing pants, you see the damage jumps up. So as long as your damage when you're attacking is around the 1 mil mark, you can get by. If you have the minimum for all the stats that I'm listing, then gameplay is going to be an issue for you. Getting through smoothly is going to be a problem, but it can work. So that is pretty much it, guys. There's a lot of options here. I mean, you can play around with a few things. I have found that this is what works the best for solo gameplay. You can get by in group gameplay as well, but it's not as great. I would recommend non-melee wizard builds for solo or for group play in T6. Something like Arcane or Meteor build is what I was using previously. That would be best. So I'm sure I've missed some stuff. Feel free to ask me any questions. Oh yeah, Paragon. Almost forgot. So int first, vit second is for me, and then you could also argue for movement speed here, but I don't really find that movement speed is an issue with this build. It could help with avoiding hits for what little downtime you have with the Frost Nova, and if you can't perfectly synchronize your casting of Frost Nova and Black Hole, then movement speed could help here, but AP is just useless. Offense, CDR obviously first priority, then crit chance, then crit damage. Attack speed is absolutely useless for this build, as other people have mentioned in their comprehensive build videos. If you have an affix in your build armor, for your armor in your build that has attack speed, that is wasted. Attack speed will do absolutely nothing for you in this build. Let's see. Defense, resist all first for wizards is the rule. Armor is useless on a wizard. Life regen, or life, if your life is low. Mine is pretty low, 330k. I might experiment later and switch this regen out for life and see how that works. But I've found pretty optimal results with maxed out resist all and life regen. Utility, area damage, life on hit, obviously. Those two are useless. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I think I hit all the main points. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And yeah, that's it.